An inspirational story about Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was one of the most influential men of the 20th century. But what kind of student had he been? Our curiosity in this regard is understandable, and the answers can be found in his own autobiography, My Experience with Truth, and some carefully preserved records of one of the schools in which he studied. Gandhi had changed many schools before the age of 10, but spent 7 years in a high school in Rajkot. He tells us that he was certainly not regarded as dunce. His certificates of progress and character were never bad. He even won prizes at the end of the second standard and scholarships in classes 4 and 5. And yet, he says with characteristic modesty that it was only due to luck and not merit. In the later years, however, his attendance became lax. A mere 110 days out of 238 in third standard, for example. His marks in the annual examinations normally average between 45% and 55%. He was even made to repeat a year, partially due to poor attendance, because he had to attend to his sick father and his newly wedded wife. He then became a serious student and got an overall score of 66.5%. He could no longer be called a mediocre student. The matriculation exam saw him secure the 404th rank out of 799 successful candidates. So much for his academic records. But did he cope equally well with all the subjects he had to study? In his own words, English became the medium of instruction in most subjects from the 4th standard. I found myself completely at sea. Geometry was a new subject in which I was not particularly strong, and the English medium made it still more difficult for me. The teacher taught the subject very well, but I could not follow him. Often, I would lose heart and think of going back to the 3rd standard. However, with much effort, I reached the 13th proposition of Euclid. The utter simplicity of the subject was suddenly revealed to me. A subject which only required a pure and simple use of one's reasoning powers could not be so difficult, a harder task. In geometry, there was nothing to memorize, whereas in Sanskrit, I thought, everything had to be learned by heart. Did the frail but agile Gandhi enjoy physical education and sports? In the higher classes, the headmaster of his school had made gymnastics and cricket compulsory for the boys, but Gandhi disliked both. He never took part in any exercise, cricket, or football before they were made compulsory. My shyness, he says, was one of the reasons for this aloofness, which I now see was wrong. I then had the false notion that gymnastics had nothing to do with education. Today, I know that physical training should have as much as place in the curriculum as mental training. Another regret that Gandhi felt in later years was about the neglect of handwriting. Even until his days in England, he had paid little attention to his handwriting. But later, when he saw in South Africa the beautiful handwriting of lawyers and young men born and educated there, he repented of his own neglect. To quote him, I saw that bad handwriting should be regarded as a sign of an imperfect education. I tried later to improve mine, but it was too late. I could never repair the neglect of my youth. Let every young man and woman be warned by my example and understand that good handwriting is a necessary part of education. Despite his rather ordinary performance in examinations, Gandhi's middle school teacher marked his conduct as very good. The records also provide glimpses of some of the writing that Gandhi did in his English papers. Perhaps an essay that he wrote in about 40 lines on the advantages of a cheerful disposition encouraged him to become that rare politician who was never known to have lost his temper. For 25 marks, he had been asked to paraphrase a poem which described how Jesus would reveal himself only to the poor peasant, not to the rich man whose chariots went whirling past. Might not this exercise have stroked an early awareness of exploitation and injustice? Such are the records relating to a student who later exerted an influence on countless Indians and turned ordinary teachers, lawyers, clerks, and the like into nationalists with heroism and spirit of self-sacrifice. It has been said that Gandhi could fashion heroes out of common clay. His first, and undoubtedly his most successful experiment, was with himself.